I don't think we've seen support at this level before to raise a family, especially if you want to have a large family.
Hey everyone, this is Andrea Heng and welcome to the Money Talks podcast. So Prime Minister Lawrence Wong announced this year's budget and it seems like there's something for everyone, from a top-up to our CDC vouchers, the largest so far, a training allowance for workers who are studying in part-time courses, and a corporate income tax rebate for companies. We want to get into how this is going to make our lives easier. That is, how can I save money and tap into what I've been given? To help bring things down, it's Navin Sregantan. He's VP of Financial Planning and Personal Investing at DBS, joining us on the Money Talks podcast. Welcome, Navin.
Hi, nice to be here.
Nice to have you in this nice red hot seat there. So my first question to you is, what were you most pleased with from this year's budget?
What actually stuck out to me most is that it was quite broad-based. You get the sense that everyone's included, whether it's the businesses, individuals or different age groups, obviously families, seniors. So it felt, in a sense, quite well-rounded. It's covered everyone, just like PM Wong actually said it would.
There are, as you said, multiple segments of the population that were addressed. Which do you think benefits the most from all of this?
We're looking at families, obviously. I think there's no surprise that birth rates have been dropping over the years. The large family scheme is probably something that did stick out because there's quite a number of benefits that are available now to people who are looking at actually raising a family of 3 or more kids.
Yeah.
Sounds very stressful though, 3 or more.
Same here.
Yeah, I do speak to people and a lot of them actually have aspirations of actually having a big enough family.
Wow.
And big will obviously be more than the what we would call a typical family of like 2 adults and 2 children in Singapore, especially when I was growing up.
So let's break it down. The part that most people were indeed excited about was the extra help given to families, especially those planning for 3 or more kids. Let's talk about that one matching in CDA account. Third child, $9,000. So if you put in $9,000, the government gives another $9, dollar for dollar matching.
Yep. That's right. But I think a step back also be to see the CDA as I think they've actually increased the amount that you get for the first step grant. So if you have a third or more child, right, this number actually goes from 5,000 to 10. So I think you have that increase as well.
Exactly.
That can actually defray costs along the way. Another thing we're looking at would be, I think one of the best things about CDA, I think, is the dollar for dollar matching. Yeah. So just take a step back. It's not just about, the third kid or more. I mean, if you have a first or second child and you want to stop at 2, that's what you're most comfortable with, please go ahead. But, dollar for dollar matching actually happens from the first child. So for the first child, you get like 4,000. Yep. I think it's 7 for second. Third and fourth is at 9. I think if you really want a big family and you can afford it, and I think you can get up to like 15,000 matching as well.
Exactly. And with the third kid at 9K, that's 18K for the third kid and up. And then there's the mother's Medisave top-up as well that was introduced for pregnancy, delivery costs. There's savings there. Life SG credits also were introduced. I won't get into the numbers now, but from a financial point of view, make a case for why this actually could be the best time to have 3 or more kids.
I don't think we've seen support at this level before to raise a family, especially if you want to have a large family. I would say, I think a lot of people are looking at costs when it comes to raising children, and that's very normal. I think we have a lot of costs of living concerns in Singapore these days, and I think this is probably one of the reasons why a lot of people might, maybe on top of focusing on their career, might be concerned about having a big family. We just talked about the top-ups and the matching as well that the government will provide. I think it's good to know that, on the surface, it might not look like the CDA is very attractive because, in most cases, you have up to like 2% or so interest on your balances. That might pale in comparison to maybe a high savings kind of account that you can get from the banks out there.
That's right.
But I think what's important is the matching. The matching, the dollar for dollar matching is actually what can actually give you quite decent returns over a longer period. And you can set aside that money for your child. And not forgetting that this money, if any spare money, is in the account and the child, I think, hits 13, you're actually able to, it will transfer to, I think, the post-secondary account.
That's right.
Yeah. And that account actually can be used for for the studies, right? And those accounts can actually give you up to 2.5% interest, which is in line with your CPF OA.
Yeah. And on that note, right, should I then, just leave that money in there? Say I don't want to use any of that money just yet. I'm able to fork out that out-of-pocket expense for whatever my kid may need for school. If I can expense that with my own cash, leave the money in there, in the CDA, is that something that we can strategize?
Yeah, I think it comes down to affordability. We have to consider that not all parents actually have the means to just set aside all their money and not touch it.
Sure.
And oftentimes that money will be drawn down. But if your financials are in order and you're comfortable with setting aside that money and using a separate account to make those payments for enrichment classes or daycare or infant care or whatever.
Right.
Think of it as like a gift from the government and you to your child when they're older. So it is a strategy, but I think it always boils down to affordability and whether parents can actually afford to do that.
Let's move on to talk about workers. Parents, they are workers at the end of the day. In many cases, I would say, you're looking at a two-parent working family. Right? In our own purse, we have Skills Future credits bumped up as well. Now, the difference is there are part-time courses now, meaning I can work out with my employer and then take these courses without actually eating into family time, say, right? So how can I maximize what's given without spending too much of the out-of-pocket money?
As in most things in Singapore, we're quite obsessed about costs.
We're very pragmatic folk. Yes.
We are. And I think that has served us well for many years. And I think it'll probably continue to. One of the things to look at, of course, I think it's not about the cost of the courses.
Right.
When we're trying to do further education or we're trying to upgrade our skills, I think what's very important is what's current to us and what will actually help us grow in our roles now. So I would probably focus more on looking at what skills would be most beneficial to my current role or skills that I feel are really important for me to take with me to a next career opportunity. So the benefits definitely help, and I think it's very important that these courses are now available to people who want to do it part-time because, like you mentioned, a lot of parents are, it's not easy being a parent,
no.
I'm very sure. And there's a lot of juggle.
Yeah.
You have to think of your own mental well-being as well, your career prospects,
and
your
if you're
children.
in the sandwich generation, you have parents to take care of on top of all of that.
So, and oftentimes because of the lack of time that they have for themselves, the truth is that a lot of these courses, they only have time to do them part-time. And it's great that these measures are now in place.
Yeah. I wish they were in place maybe last year when I was still studying. But back to the workforce transformation bit. Employers can now claim up to 70% to support job redesign. Now, if I want to make a case to redesign my job, how do I get my employer to help me do this without, again, spending my own money? And also getting time off to do this because time is money. It's either I fork it out on my own or my employer has to do it. So what's that sweet spot here?
Okay, I think with everything, it starts with talking to your boss, right? For some of us, that's a really hard conversation to have.
Oh, yes. Very difficult, that one.
Thankfully, not for me, but
lucky you then.
Lucky me. We do need to, I think, have an honest conversation.
Sure.
I think it's very difficult sometimes. Some bosses might feel not very approachable, but at the same time, we're looking at how you can actually improve in your role. So a lot of times it's a mix of what, if you've worked in a role for a couple of years, 2-3 years, or you kind of know the ins and outs of a company. Let's say if you've been in a company for a number of years, you know what the company might be lacking or what the team might be lacking, and actually how, if given the right resources, you will be able to kind of improve that role or to help the company do better in various functions. So I think it starts with what you can offer. You have to be confident, I guess, in assessing and also being honest with yourself and assessing how you think you can improve.
I think it's about creating opportunity and presenting that created opportunity to the boss and say, hey, you know what? It's going to look good on you too if we do this. How
we see our jobs has also changed over the years. We used to maybe see ourselves just solely performing a function. And now we try to get a lot more out of it. So this is a really good opportunity to have that conversation. And I think companies are also more receptive to how your own ideas on how you think you can improve the role. Because if it helps them, if it helps you and it helps them, it's usually a win-win.
Have your voice heard, I say.
Yes.
Finally, the favorite part, CDC and SG60 vouchers. I was actually calculating how much I was going to get in my purse. They have a time limit, right?
Yeah.
There's an expiry date. So it's not like I can save it for later. And I've seen this happen year after year ever since CDC vouchers were introduced.
Yes.
31st of December, you see a long line of people queuing up at Tsuta restaurants.
I'm guilty of it though.
So am I. Exactly. I did exactly that. There were 4 or 5 families ahead of me using up CDC vouchers at the very last minute just to use them up. So what do you, first of all, use it most for? And what do you suggest what do you suggest people can do to maximize and make these go even further?
I think we try to pace the use of the vouchers over the years.
Yeah.
Because I found that in my early years of being married, we were always trying to finish everything up in the last 2 weeks of the year.
Yeah.
Now we try to space it out. But it usually means that when we remember, when we'll go and use it. And I think it does help that now there are 2 tranches, usually have about 2 tranches on you at one time. You know?
Yeah.
So there'll be one coming in a few months from now, right?
Yes.
That was recently
500
announced.
in May, that's right.
Yes, and that's on top of what was already given to us recently.
How do you budget it for your own household then? Like, what do you guys spend on?
I think we're quite basic in that sense. So we really just go to the supermarket, and
Okay.
I think I stay quite near a couple of hawker centers. So
Okay.
we're very typical in that we just go for a tita meal or something. We just spread it out. That way.
Yeah.
It's much easier. What we just talked about is, in this case, I'm kind of like backloading everything to the end at the start. But it's a lot better to spread out, like I say.
Yeah.
And at the same time, it doesn't mean that you should rush and like spend them immediately.
Yeah,
which a
because
lot of people,
because
some
I know
people
of
might
some
do, yeah.
scenarios where they would spend on slightly more luxe items. So say a butcher in the neighborhood that accepts CDC vouchers, you can go ahead and buy a $200 Wagyu rump or something like that and that's it, $200 gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, it comes down to affordability. I think a lot of, and this might represent different types of families or different segments of
Sure.
society. I think if you're someone who's been, you're not having much savings month on month, CDC vouchers might actually be something that you can use,
Yeah.
right? Instead, and you should spread them out maybe from the start. You can actually spread them out, and if you find yourself not saving enough, you use that spare money that you now have.
Yeah.
Maybe build up an emergency fund, or maybe spend an extra money on starting 1 or 2 small investments.
Yeah.
Just
Or
get those
have
habits
more
going.
of those Tsuta meals with your
Oh, well,
family.
well-
it's a good chance to bond with your
Well, in
family.
my life, we try to encourage people to think about the future.
That's also true.
If you have all that settled, you have a lot of your affairs settled, and I think it's up to you what you want to do with it.
Yeah.
But if you don't, and you're trying to improve maybe your financial standing, you want to set aside an emergency fund, use the CDC vouchers instead of that cash.
Yeah.
Maybe set that money aside,
Yeah.
or it can go somewhere else.
I think it's about really just forming that habit and saying,
Yes.
okay, I'm at a hawker center, I'm at a heartland shop, or even a mall. Some malls accept it. Whip out the CDC vouchers, have it on your bookmark somewhere in your
I
browser.
think it's just easy to remember.
Yeah.
Maybe just try to associate hawker center or
Yeah.
a coffee shop as a time to use my CDC vouchers.
Yeah, and the bright green logo certainly helps as well, I'm sure. Navin, thanks very much for
Thanks
coming
for
on the
having me.
podcast,
Thank you, Elizabeth.
breaking down the budget for us.
Thank you.
Now, if you've got any comments or questions, you can always leave us a message. Money Talks is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, as well as YouTube. Please leave us a rating while you are there. Credits to the team as well. Crispina Robert, Tiffany Ang, Junaini Johari, Joanne Chan, Aaron Low, Hanida Amin, Ili Mansur, Sayawind. I'm Andrea Heng signing off for the Money Talks podcast. Happy spending your budget. Well, try and spread it out too. Why don't you?